Persona 5 Tactica is quickly proving itself as a strong contender in the turn-based strategy space. So, if you're a new player to the genre who only played the main Persona series in the past, or you're just someone who's trying the game for the first time, I've got some tips that will help you get into the game and have a great time. For the sake of clarity, I started the playthrough that I gathered these tips from on hard, but have since moved on to merciless for the added challenge that it provides. Thus, if these tips work for me, even if you're on a lower difficulty, they should work for you. There's a lot to discuss, so let's get started.
Leave it to me.
Persona 5 Tactica.
Hello everyone, my name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Like Men. I'm a small creator working to make YouTube my full-time career, so if you enjoy this video or any of my other coverage of gaming news, guides, commentary, all that type of good stuff, a like and a subscription would be very much appreciated. Thank you. It's a fairly well-known fact at this point that I have never played a Persona game before in my life. I know a fair bit about the series due to cultural osmosis, but that's as far as my experience with the series goes. But what I do know is turn-based strategy. So, what better game for me to start with than Tactica, right? Today we're talking direct in-combat tips. I have another video in the works with a suite of tips covering out-of-combat build crafting and such, so look out for that if that's what you're looking for. And if you're looking for very general guidance, I have an absolute beginner's guide out now as well. Link to that is in the description. With that all out of the way, let's begin. Number 1, plan your moves in advance. Now, before you roll your eyes, close the video, let me explain. While yes, you should be planning your moves in any strategy game, turn-based or otherwise, the unique design of P5 Tactica makes this even more vital than normal. Unlike games like Fire Emblem or XCOM, some of Tactica's clear inspirations, with their chances to hit and miss, different things like that, all attacks in Tactica are guaranteed to hit unless you have full cover. You're also able to move all of your units simultaneously to line up big chain attacks, unlike unit turns being segregated in other titles. This means the game plays more closely to a puzzle game in many instances, similarly to indie title Into the Breach. You know exactly what you can hit, from where, and you can move your entire team into position before the first shot is even fired to line up knockbacks and triple threats. All you need to do is find the correct solution to the puzzle, and then execute. Since the only random variables are things like critical hits and the spawning of enemy reinforcements, it behooves you to take a minute or two at the start of each turn and decide how to proceed before throwing the Phantom Thieves into the fire. Number 2, pack personas with knockback effects. While every character has the ability to knock enemies out of cover with their melee attacks, this isn't always viable due to long combat ranges and terrain that you just straight up can't navigate. Yet in Tactica, knocking enemies out of cover to make them vulnerable and grant you follow-up attacks when you hit them is vital. Being able to chain multiple attacks together to clear out the greatest possible number of enemies per turn is insanely powerful, and on Merciless, it's absolutely critical to success. So, what to do? Persona spells. Abilities like Agi and Garu will throw enemies out of position, allowing you to hit them with ranged attacks or AoE spells for big follow-ups without needing to make yourself vulnerable. And considering that some of these Weasley little bastards love to sit in fortified positions with no way to approach them on foot, it is absolutely vital that you move them whenever possible. Pinball power. Knockback damage is free damage. Not only is knockback an incredibly valuable effect for its ability to remove enemies from cover, thus allowing you to follow up and get one more attack, it's also a source of free damage. Knocking enemies into walls or cover will deal bonus damage to them on top of the damage from your attack, and knocking them into other enemies will damage both the target and the enemy who is hit by their friend. Since knocking foes out of position is so vital in Tactica in the first place, getting bonus damage out of it is just the cherry on top. It's not something that you'll be able to make use of all the time, but when you feel like you might be able to try, go for it. Doubly so, again, on Merciless, where enemies can be rather tanky, so each little extra bit of chip damage that you can get is going to be worth it. Number 4, maintain cover at all times. I mentioned cover and knocking enemies out of it in point 2, but unless your arm is being twisted 180 degrees and you have literally no other choice, make sure that you stay in cover with every member of the team at all times. I cannot overstate this, as the enemy will absolutely take advantage of your vulnerable units to trigger follow-up attacks for massive damage. Even if you need to step into cover that doesn't actually block enemy shots or leaves you flanked, do it. Just the act of having cover next to you will prevent enemies from getting follow-ups, so it's better than standing out in the open with your pants down. Yeah, you'll still take damage, but less than you will if you give the enemy extra turns. Number 5, always aim for triple threats. The triple threat is an incredibly powerful tool in your arsenal. The ability to catch nearly the entire enemy army in a massively damaging attack is, no surprise, very, very strong. It's something that I didn't really give enough credit at first, but consider. The only 2 requirements for triggering a triple threat are that a downed enemy is surrounded by your entire party, and you must have a character in the one more state, meaning they triggered a follow-up turn by attacking a vulnerable enemy. Triggering one more means that there's now a downed enemy on the field unless you outright destroyed them. So now you're free to move your team into position to catch as many enemies in the blast as possible, and considering this attack takes no SP to use and does massive damage, it's absolutely your best and most efficient tool to use when the situation allows. Tailoring your battle strategy around enabling triple threats and the ability to maneuver into place for the optimal trigger of them will be your most efficient play 9 times out of 10. Number 6, maximize your move range. Speaking of being able to maneuver into position, in a game like Tactica, movement range is king. The ability to maneuver in and out of cover, or flank enemies to subvert their cover, or even position yourself for the biggest area of effect persona spells you can cast is paramount. As such, characters who have the best move range have an inherent advantage over their contemporaries. Also, effects like One More that grant another action, or attacks like Anne's Femme Fatale that do the same, are massively powerful. After all, they don't just grant you the chance to make another attack, but they completely refresh your movement points as well, which allow you to push forward even further to get into position. By clever chaining of One More attacks and other bonus action effects, you can dance a character halfway across the battlefield on turn 1, setting up triple threats and future turns in the process. So, keep an eye on your character's movement ranges and abuse any and all ways you have to increase them whenever possible. Now, no, these last 2 tips are slightly more meta in nature. They aren't like directly combat related, but they do still like involve things that you're doing in combat. And while they aren't directly related to success on the battlefield, they do, again, have to do with it. So I'm still including them here. But put the pitchforks away, please. Thank you. Just listen on, you'll see. Number 7, always shoot for award objectives. In every battle, there are 3 bonus objectives that you can complete. Typically, these involve not letting any of your units get down, clearing the map in a certain number of turns, or other similar objectives particular to the map. You should always try to achieve these. These objectives aren't just fun little side missions for bragging rights, they are an opportunity to earn extra money and XP for the team who's been deployed. In a tactics game, and especially on the highest difficulty, these are absolutely vital resources, and leaving them on the table when the game is laying them out in plain sight for you is a very bad move. It won't help in your immediate moment-to-moment gameplay, sure, but it will make things way easier for you when you have the funds to buy better weapons, and your characters and persona are just stronger across the board. Keep in mind as well, even if you just can't figure out how to achieve a certain objective when you first come across it, you can always come back to it later on with mission replay. In Tactica, when you replay a mission, you do so using your current team and their current level, so you should find it far easier to get an objective that you missed before and still get the bonuses for it. So complete the mission objectives, or your team will starve, or something, or you'll starve from lack of success clearing the game content. Just complete the bonus objectives. It's worth it. And finally, number 8. Unless the objective tells you to, don't worry about clearing all enemies. Contrary to many other games in the genre, defeating enemies is not your primary path to unit growth. Instead, completing missions and achieving award objectives is the way forward. As such, enemies serve only as an obstacle to mission completion unless otherwise stated. For example, in Mission 14, one of the award objectives is defeat all enemies. To get the best reward, you must do this. Compare that to Mission 13, where your only objectives are clearing the stage in a certain number of turns with no units downed, and all you need to do is rush your team to the flag and destroy it as fast as possible to get your best win. It's far more efficient and should be your focus whenever possible. And those are my first 8 tips for combat in Persona 5 Tactica. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope they help you find success in what is turning out to be a very solid first entry for Persona in the tactics space. If you have any questions or feedback, please feel free to comment down below or join my Discord and strike up a conversation. If it's a particularly in-depth question or topic, maybe I'll even make a video about it. You never know. With that said, my name has been Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. I hope you all have a good night. Stay safe and healthy out there. And remember, be good to each other. Bye. Bye now.